The radar flashed. Coordinates 9 degrees south, 119 degrees east. Through the dense fog, a head emerged from the water. Not a dolphin. Not a seal. But a wild Mustang horse. 70 miles from the nearest land, and what happened next left the entire ship in stunned silence. It wasn't swimming to survive. It was guarding the final secret of a vanished civilization. A great connection, once forgotten by the world. Join Gallop of Glory on a journey never told before. Captain Elias Monroe hadn't touched a drop of alcohol in over 12 years. But that morning, just after 0430 hours, when the first flicker of static jittered across the radar screen, he found himself whispering an old sailor's prayer he hadn't said since war. The Sea Lantern was 3 days into an open ocean biological survey off the southern edge of the Indonesian Trench. A mission funded by the Pacific Biodiversity Trust, designed to study deep-water plankton blooms. Predictable. Routine. Nothing here was supposed to move, let alone swim. Elias stood alone on the bridge, coffee cooling in his hand, eyes locked on the pale green pulse of the radar scope. It blinked again. Then again. Then twice in 1 second. That wasn't sea clutter. He leaned forward, jaw tight. Activate isolation sweep, he said into the calm 1 nautical mile, 360. A few beats later, the radar confirmed it. An object. 700 pounds, moving at 5 knots. Approach vector, intentional. The bridge door creaked open behind him. It was Dr. Maren Wexley, second in command, head of sonar. Mid-30s, sharp-minded, and allergic to bullshit. "You're up early," she said, stifling a yawn. "Or never slept." Elias didn't look away. "We've got something." "What?" "Whale? Fluke?" "Too small for a whale," he muttered. "Too fast for debris. And it's holding course." He stepped aside. "See for yourself." Maren squinted at the screen. "That's a steady swim pattern. That's not just drifting with current." "No," Elias said flatly. "It's not." There was a brief silence. Then, "Jesus, are we being followed?" He didn't answer. Instead, he picked up the binoculars and climbed the exterior ladder to the upper deck. Salt spray bit his face. The morning air was cold, damp, the kind that whispered secrets if you stood still long enough. The fog was rolling in heavier now, gray curtains sliding in from the east. But there, just off the starboard bow, something disturbed the surface, a slow ripple. A shape. A shadow. He raised the binoculars. Then he stopped breathing. What the hell? It was a head. Not a human. Not a fin. Not even close. A mane, sodden and slick, clung to a muscular neck. Ears pinned. Eyes above waterline. And then, with a slow, deliberate motion, the figure dipped forward and propelled itself through the swells. "Captain?" Maren's voice crackled from below. "You see anything?" Elias lowered the binoculars, but didn't speak. His mouth had gone dry. "Captain?" He keyed the comm, voice low. "Get every available lens pointed at bearing 095. Now." He descended back down like a man carrying glass in both hands. "Notify the team. Unidentified large animal. Possibly injured. Prepare wildlife protocol, scratch that. Prepare unprecedented wildlife protocol." Maren blinked. "What is it?" Elias looked her dead in the eye. "A horse." She laughed, reflexively. "What?" He didn't laugh. He didn't blink. "A wild Mustang," he said quietly. "Swimming. Out here. She stared at him, pale. That's not survival instinct, he muttered. That's navigation. The Sea Lantern's crew scrambled like a hive. Drones deployed. Visuals confirmed. There was no mistaking it. A wild horse, male, from the musculature and build, was swimming in a straight line, steady as if crossing a shallow creek. But this wasn't Montana. This was 70 nautical miles from any coastline. No raft. No wreckage. No sign of distress. Just those dark, intelligent eyes scanning the horizon. I've worked marine rescues for 15 years, said Evan Torelli, the deck lead. I've seen dolphins adopt orphan seals. Saw a shark get stuck in a jellyfish bloom once. But I've never seen a horse in the open ocean. Check satellite drift paths, Elias ordered. Anything, storm debris, raft, island chains. I want to know what's out here, or what was out here. The horse kept swimming. The footage came back in real time, side profiles, over-the-shoulder shots from drone cams. And something odd became apparent. Every few minutes, the Mustang would tilt his head. Not toward the ship. Not toward land. But toward a fixed point in the fog. Like he knew where he was going. Captain, Marin said cautiously. We need to consider the possibility this is not natural. You think someone dropped him out here? I don't know. But horses don't swim in open sea for miles. They just don't. Unless they were trying to reach something. A beat. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything yet, Elias said. But we follow. Keep distance. Don't spook him. By late afternoon, the swells had calmed. The sun hung like a copper coin behind high clouds, and the air tasted metallic. The horse was slowing. Not from exhaustion, but as if he sensed he was close. Captain, came a voice from sonar. We're approaching a region with anomalous bottom contours. No charted formations. But we're getting vertical echo returns. Elias furrowed his brow. Show me. The sonar tech pulled up the 3D map. Below them was a massive semicircular formation. Smooth. Geometric. Built. No one spoke. Then the horse turned sharply. For the first time, he looked directly at the Sea Lantern. Not startled. Not aggressive. Just watching. Assessing. Like he'd been waiting for them. And then, slowly, deliberately, he began swimming toward the vessel. Captain? Marin said, breath shallow. What do we do? Elias didn't hesitate. We prepare to receive him. The sea was too still. Captain Elias Monroe had seen typhoons, rogue waves, even freak waterspouts off Okinawa in '97. But this silence, the way the ocean had flattened, felt wrong in a deeper way. Like something ancient holding its breath. And then the Mustang touched the ship. No thrashing. No panic. He simply glided toward the submerged loading platform on the port side, slowing as if he understood the mechanics of approach. The swells rocked gently as his hooves found the edge. Is he boarding himself? Marin whispered. Elias stood frozen. Even now, after the shock, after confirmation, after footage, this part still didn't feel real. The stallion placed one hoof onto the ramp. Then another. Water cascaded off his flanks in silver sheets. His breathing, deep and measured. He climbed the incline slowly, stopping halfway, just long enough to meet Elias's eyes. And then, he stepped fully onto the platform. Standing. Soaked. Trembling. But willing. Secure the platform, Elias ordered, voice tight. Slow lift. The hydraulic arms hissed, raising the stallion inch by inch toward the upper deck. The metal clanged softly beneath him, but the horse didn't move. Didn't flinch. His ears flicked once. That was it. The crew stood back, silent. Not from fear, but reverence. Even Evan, the deck lead who once wrangled a leopard seal with nothing but a tarp and a cuss word, said nothing. He just stared. As the platform locked into place, Elias stepped forward. 1 pace. 2. The horse turned his head. Slowly. Then he did something none of them were prepared for. He stepped forward and pressed his muzzle to Elias's open hand. The contact was brief. Soft. Deliberate. A gesture of trust. A chill ran down Elias's spine, one not caused by wind. "Get blankets," he said quietly. "Water. Keep him warm but don't rush him." 30 minutes later, the makeshift stall on the aft deck had been set up. A privacy tarp blocked the view from above. Fans cycled warm air. The deck had been cleared, and emergency foam mats lined the space. The stallion stood calmly as towels blotted his coat and a dry sheet was draped over his back. He drank slowly from a bucket, no frantic gulps, no desperation. Just slow, careful sips. "Vitals are stable," Marin said, finishing the preliminary exam. "Heart rate a little elevated, but that's expected. No abrasions, no open wounds." She stopped. "What?" Elias asked. Her gloved hand hovered just above the horse's right flank. "There's something here." She carefully parted the damp hair, revealing a long, faint scar. But this wasn't a tear or a gash. It curved, then angled. A straight line cut across at the base. Too clean. Too intentional. "That's not natural," she murmured. "That's a pattern." Elias leaned in. It looked like a symbol. Etched just beneath the skin, like something branded long ago but softened by time. An arc with 2 parallel lines. And something beneath it, a dot. A triangle? "It's not tribal," said Evan. "Not ranch. I've branded horses. That's not a heat scar. It looks like," Marin hesitated. "Like language." "Captain," came a voice from the onboard medical bay. It was Dr. Nadia Chen, marine vet and field biologist, piped in via comms. "I just scanned the scar area with thermal imaging. There's a heat differential." Elias blinked. "Meaning?" "Meaning there's something under that scar. Something metallic." Silence. "I'm coming up," Chen added. "Bring the field scanner." Within 10 minutes she was on deck, instruments in hand. The stallion didn't move as she approached. Even when she placed the small sensor pad against his flank, he simply turned his head, watching. The screen pulsed once. Then twice. Then turned red. "There," Chen whispered. She zoomed. A tiny rectangle. No larger than a grain of rice. Embedded just beneath the muscle layer. Too deep for surface injury. Too regular to be a cyst. It had corners. Angles. "This isn't a tracker I recognize," she said. "Definitely not ranch issue. Not commercial livestock. Not even wildlife rescue. Military?" Elias asked quietly. Chen shook her head. "Even the military doesn't embed chips under muscle and free-roaming wild animals. And how the hell would they even get to him?" They all stared at the screen. "This isn't a Mustang someone lost," Elias murmured. "This is something someone, or something, meant to hide." Later that night, while the stallion rested, eyes half-lidded, chest rising in calm rhythm, Marin called Elias to the lab. She looked pale. I ran preliminary blood work. Just the basics. CBC, hormone levels, muscle enzymes. And some of it checks out. Elevated myoglobin, sodium chloride slightly off, probably from seawater exposure. But she turned the screen. Genetic sequencing showed irregular mitochondrial structures. Not just mutations. Variants. Ones we haven't seen in modern horses. Elias leaned in. Explain it to me like I'm not a PhD. She pointed. These here, these markers? They're consistent with prehistoric equines. We've found traces of them in permafrost-preserved specimens from Central Asia. So, old genes? Very. But here's the part that makes no sense. She pulled up a comparative model. His cells are metabolically adapted for high salinity exposure. His red blood cells regulate osmosis like marine mammals. Almost semi-amphibious. Elias stared at her. You're telling me this horse was built for the ocean? I'm telling you, she said slowly. He's not supposed to exist. The ship's log showed clear skies that night, but Elias swore the stars were dimmer. He couldn't sleep. At 0200, he returned to the stall. The Mustang was awake. Not pacing. Not restless. Just watching the sea through a gap in the tarp. Elias stepped quietly to the edge. Where did you come from? He asked. The horse turned. Walked forward. Stopped within arm's reach. And then, for the second time, he touched Elias's hand. But this time, not just the muzzle. He pressed his forehead gently against Elias's chest. Elias stood very still. Something about it didn't feel like affection. It felt like recognition. Just before dawn, Dr. Chen reviewed a magnified image of the scar symbol. Something's been bothering me, she said. She overlaid the symbol atop a bathymetric chart of the ocean floor, the same area where they'd first seen the Mustang. The lines matched. Not randomly. Perfectly. The scar on his flank, she said, voice flat. It's a map. Marin walked in, bleary-eyed. Of what? Coordinates, Chen said. And not just depth and location. There's a pattern of seismic markers. The scar overlays directly with tectonic stress points. Like a key? No, said Elias from behind. Like a warning. They looked at each other. And somewhere outside the ship, far below the calm surface of the sea, something trembled. The first thing to vanish was the signal. It happened just after dawn. Captain Elias Monroe stood at the edge of the deck, the Mustang still beside him, when Ling, his comms tech, rushed out of the cabin, eyes wide. Captain, she shouted, holding up a blinking console. We've lost satellite feed. All channels, GPS, relay, uplink, everything's gone. Elias turned, sharply. Interference? Ling's fingers flew across the backup panel. Not internal. This isn't a malfunction. Something is jamming us. From outside. A pause. Then, a faint hum. Low. Mechanical. Vibrating under the hull like a distant engine warming up. And on the horizon, something dark moved. Not a storm. Not a bird. A chopper. Fast. Silent. No insignia. Evan, the deck chief, spotted it first. Unmarked aircraft inbound. That's not on any of our flight charts. Elias narrowed his eyes. Everyone inside. Now. The Mustang moved on instinct, backing deeper into the shaded tarp enclosure. Elias remained where he was, at the edge of the deck. Waiting. The helicopter didn't hover. It descended. Fast. And when the side door slid open, 4 men stepped out. Black jackets. No military insignia. No agency patches. Just flat expressions and earpieces. No one drew weapons. But everyone knew this was an extraction team. One of them stepped forward. He didn't offer a name. Captain Monroe. You and your team are operating in proximity to classified territory. Elias didn't blink. We're in international waters. Documented survey mission, check your charts. We have, the man replied. This is now a federal containment operation. All materials, samples, and specimens in your possession are to be turned over. Immediately. Elias's voice went flat. That horse isn't a specimen. He's a rescue. Not anymore, the man said. Per Order 479D, biogenic entity Alpha is to be transferred into secure custody. Prepare for offload. Behind Elias, Marin emerged. You don't have jurisdiction here, she said firmly. We report to the Pacific Biodiversity Trust. The man turned toward her. Expression unreadable. We have jurisdiction above them. Elias held his ground, arms folded. You want to take him? Show me a court order. A chain of custody. Or at least a name I can verify. The man didn't blink. Instead, he pulled a small black device from his coat pocket, no larger than a pager, and clicked it once. Every screen on the bridge went dark. Deck lights flickered. Lean's backup unit shut down in her hands. Marin's tablet died mid-boot. What the hell did you just do? Elias asked, voice like ice. The man glanced toward the horse's enclosure. You're not listening, Captain. This isn't about protocol. It's about containment. Elias stepped forward, tone low. Containment of what? The man's expression stayed unreadable. But his voice dropped. You're not cleared for that answer. Behind him, the rest of the crew stood silent. No one knew what line had been crossed. Only that it had been crossed long ago. Then the Mustang stepped into view. From behind the tarp. Head high. Eyes locked onto the strangers. No fear. No panic. Only presence. The lead agent shifted uncomfortably. You've got 2 hours, he said. A retrieval vessel is inbound. Prepare the animal. And just like that, they turned and left. The rotor blade screamed. The chopper lifted, leaving only silence in its wake. But it wasn't silence. It was surveillance. Inside the bridge, tension cracked the air like static. This is a cover-up, Ling said. They didn't jam us until after we found the scar. Marin nodded. They're monitoring seismic scans. Satellite drift. Anything close to that trench must trip an alert. Dr. Chen paced across the med bay. They're not scientists. They don't want him for study. They want him erased. Evan slammed a wrench onto the table. So what now? We hand him over and pretend we saw nothing? Elias didn't speak. He stared at the bathymetric chart. The coordinates, 9 degrees south, 119 degrees east. A zone marked on most modern maps only as unsurveyed waters. No lanes. No wreck markers. No reason to go near it. Except this. The scar on the Mustang's flank matched it, exactly. Marin, he said. What's down there? She hesitated. Then pulled up classified sonar readings. A magnetic anomaly. Strong. Too strong for its tectonic age. There's something under that trench, shaped. geometric. Chen added, "It's not Atlantis. It's older." "How much older?" "No one knows. The Navy redacted the data in '98. All I found were echoes." Elias stared at the map. His voice was low, steady. He didn't drift here. He didn't get lost. Everyone turned. He came from there. The stallion was standing by the tarp wall, unmoving. Elias approached quietly. "They want to take you." The horse turned his head, locked eyes with him, then pressed his muzzle softly into Elias's palm. Not resistance. Understanding. "He's guarding something," Elias whispered. "Something buried. Something someone doesn't want touched." Marin stepped beside him. "If they take him, we'll never know." "No," Elias said. "But someone might." She looked confused. "What do you mean?" "We don't stop them. But we don't erase him either." He turned to Ling. "Can you hide a record? Inside the sonar logs?" Ling blinked. "Buried behind dummy protocols?" "Yeah. But it won't stay hidden forever." "Doesn't have to." He looked at the horse again. "It just has to outlive today." That night, clouds rolled in from the east. Low. Silent. Ominous. The sea lantern sat motionless on a glassy sea. Every light inside dimmed, every console humming with restrained electricity. In the dark, Elias met with the crew. They left no manifesto. No message in a bottle. Just data. Encrypted. Fragmented. Hidden beneath layers of ship protocol. The scar. The chip. The scans. The map. The horse. All of it encoded and planted. A seed. 5:20. A larger ship approached, gray and silent. No lights. No flag. It docked without a word. 2 men crossed over. The lead agent from before nodded once. "Where is the specimen?" Elias didn't answer. He walked. Led them to the stall. The Mustang was waiting. Still. Calm. Ready. The handlers moved in. Just before they reached him, Elias stepped forward. No speech. No protest. Just a hand. Laid gently on the stallion's cheek. "You don't owe us anything," he whispered. The Mustang blinked. Then turned. And walked, on his own, into the open hold of the waiting vessel. But as he passed Elias, he paused. Looked up. And his eyes wasn't fear. It was warning. And something else. A promise. The door closed. And just before it sealed, the lights on Sea Lantern flickered once. Somewhere, deep beneath 9 degrees south, 119 degrees east. The seabed shifted. The Sea Lantern drifted beneath a slate-gray sky. Elias didn't return to the bridge. He stood at the edge of the deck, staring out toward where the other ship had vanished hours ago, now just memory and fog. Inside the lab, Marin finalized the encryption. "That's it," she said. "All data fragments are buried. Behind ballast temp anomalies. Dummy protocols. Thermal drift." Ling nodded. "Anyone looking won't find it. But if someone's really looking, they'll see everything," Evan added. And that was the point. Truth hidden. But not erased. That night, Elias didn't sleep. He studied the chart again. The scar overlay. The sonar contours. The ancient fault line beneath the trench. A wound under the ocean floor. And he remembered the Mustang's gaze, steady, solemn. Not pleading. Knowing. 2 days later, under federal order, the Sea Lantern returned to port. There was no press. No public record. Only 2 plainclothes officials with soft voices and cold eyes. They took nothing. Because by then, there was nothing left to take. At least, not where they were looking. That night, someone slid an envelope under Elias's door. Inside, a black and white photo. Blurry. Grainy. A Mustang. Swimming. Open ocean. Dated 1984. On the back. Second confirmed sighting. Same flank symbol. Below that, in shaky handwriting. They're not animals. They're messengers. And they've been coming longer than we've known. 3:17 a.m. His personal radio crackled to life. No ID. No ping. Just a distorted voice. You kept a piece of him alive. Then, silence. Then, we're not the only ones listening now. And the static faded. 1 week later, the story began to dissolve. Emails bounced. Research access revoked. Funding pulled. The official log read: unidentified marine anomaly. Contained for analysis. No further incident. No mention of the horse. Or the scar. Or the coordinates. But the encrypted logs? Still there. Buried. Waiting. Because beneath 9 degrees south, 119 degrees east, something ancient remembers. The surface was still. Too still. As the Sea Lantern held position above the coordinates 9 degrees south, 119 degrees east, a hush blanketed the deck. No engine noise. No birds. No waves. Just pressure. Like the ocean was holding its breath. Below them lay a trench no map fully captured, an abyss marked only by sonar anomalies and magnetic interference. And somewhere within it, the answer no one was supposed to find. Captain Elias Monroe, once a man of routine missions and maritime protocol, now faced something else entirely. He wasn't diving for data. He was diving for truth. The dive team was small. Deliberate. No broadcast. No manifest. Just Elias himself. Dr. Anika Ray, geobiologist, fluent in paleosymbolism. 2 deep explorer engineers, Patel and Reese, ex-NOAA. The submersible, Midas I, hummed to life. Titanium shell. Twin arm stabilizers. Rated for 12,000 meters. As the cabin sealed, the lights flickered once. Anika's eyes met Elias's. No one spoke. Then, hoofbeats. Not above. Not on deck. But below. Vibrations, soft, unmistakable. The Mustang appeared at the rear rail of the Sea Lantern. He didn't panic. He didn't neigh. He just stood, looking down. Then, without hesitation, he jumped. A clean arc into the sea. No flailing. Just precision. The team froze. Reese reached for the comm. Did that horse just? Yes, Elias said. And we're following him. Midas I descended. 100 meters. 400, 800. The ocean turned to ink. No fish. No kelp. Just a pressurized stillness. At 1,200 meters, the glow returned. An impossible shimmer. Twisting like a ribbon into the depths, the trail curved, not like current, but like architecture. Intentional. Mineral light refraction? Anika guessed. No, Elias said, leaning forward. It's a beacon. Ahead, the Mustang moved effortlessly, like he belonged here. At 1,700 meters, the first shapes appeared. Obelisks. Spiraled pillars. Coral growth in straight lines. At 2,000 meters, the city emerged. No ruins. No decay. Just stillness. Preserved. Alive. The buildings were massive. Built of coralized stone fused with metals that didn't corrode. Roads arranged in arcs. Symbols etched into every surface, circular, rhythmic, familiar. Then they saw the statues. Horses. Hundreds of them. Lifelike. Eyes wide. Standing at doorways, gates, intersections. Guardians. Patel murmured, "It's a civilization of riders." "No," Anika said, staring. "It's a civilization of messengers." The Mustang stopped at a raised plaza. A perfect stone ring. Embedded with spiral patterns and crystals that glowed faintly. At the center, a gate. Circular. Framed in bone-white coral and laid with violet stone veins that shimmered like starlight. "It's responding to him," Reese whispered. The horse swam to the dome. Placed his forehead to the glass. And Elias felt it again. This time, deeper. A rush of images. Not language. Not memory. But experience. Running through submerged caverns. Tunnels carved beneath tectonic plates. Cities powered by thermal vents and crystal lattices. Horses standing in circles. Eyes closed. Channeling light between them. Then a ship. Steel. Modern. Violent. Men in suits. Harvesting the coral. Taking bones from the gate. Collapse. A people retreating. Erasing themselves. Leaving only three. 3 horses. Bound to a purpose. Elias saw a warning. A countdown. A fracture forming beneath the trench. Then a face. His own. Older. Standing on this very platform. Reaching toward the gate. And a voice, not heard but known. "You are the last listener." The gate lit fully. Spirals spun. The violet crystals bloomed with inner fire. And the Mustang turned, slowly, one last time. He stepped into the center. Light engulfed him. And then, he vanished. No body. No bones. No sound. Just light. And when it faded, the plaza dimmed. Anika sat stunned. Was that death? No, Elias said softly. That was return. Back aboard the Sea Lantern, hours later, no one spoke. Elias stood at the rail, staring into the black horizon. The Mustang's memory still burned in his chest. Not grief. Purpose. And somewhere beneath them, the gate slept again. But it had been opened. And something on the other side was listening. The first notice came in the form of silence. No warning. No sirens. No announcements. Just the click of encrypted channels vanishing. The comms board on the Sea Lantern dimmed one section at a time, like a lighthouse shutting down, room by room. Captain Elias Monroe didn't need a translator. It meant only one thing. They were coming. Inside the lab, Dr. Anika Ray's fingers hovered over the final data extract. Sonar pings, biometric logs, energy pulses from the underwater gate, all encrypted, fragmented, and tucked away under layers of false readings and corrupted metadata. Upload's done, she whispered. We won't be able to reach it again once they board. Elias didn't answer. He was staring through the narrow port window, jaw tight, eyes unfocused. His hands rested on the ship's railing like they were holding the weight of something much heavier than steel. The Mustang, who had returned, impossibly, after stepping through the gate days before, stood quietly under the tarp enclosure. Dry. Calm. Present. No one knew how he had come back. No one asked. He simply appeared again at dawn. On the rocks near the shore where the Sea Lantern had been forced to dock under federal order. That afternoon, the Department of Advanced Security, operating under no public mandate, made their intentions known. A man in a gray suit, with eyes that didn't blink and a voice trained to sound like neutrality, handed Elias a document he refused to sign. Pursuant to Directive A7, the man stated, biogenic entity Alpha is to be transferred into federal custody for indefinite containment and analysis. This is a matter of national and global security. Elias stared at the line, entity to be remanded for bioadaptive study under indefinite hold. He didn't speak. He didn't sign. The man didn't care. We begin extraction at 4 o'clock. That night, the ship slept under watch. Uniformed officers patrolled the pier. Drones circled overhead. The Mustang was moved under protest to a reinforced enclosure near the forward cargo ramp. Lights glared white and cold. Ling, the comms officer, whispered, "They're going to cut him open, aren't they?" Dr. Chen didn't reply. She was too busy wiping the word subject off her clipboard and replacing it with him. At 2:45, Elias slipped quietly into the cargo bay. He wore no jacket. No boots. Just silence. The horse saw him instantly. Didn't move. Didn't flinch. Elias approached, hands open. And for the last time, he unhooked the restraints. The Mustang blinked once. Then stepped forward, muzzle brushing against Elias's shoulder like a final nod of understanding. "This isn't a rescue," Elias whispered. "It's a return." The road to the beach was short, but brutal. Floodlights had blind spots. Patrols rotated. One window. 6 minutes. Elias and Evan moved like ghosts, boots muffled, breath shallow, path memorized to the inch. At the base of the dunes, the sea opened like a mouth of shadows. Quiet. Watching. The Mustang hesitated only once. He turned back. Stared at Elias. And in the hush before dawn, as wind stirred nothing but memory, he struck his hoof 3 times against the earth. Once for those who forgot. Twice for those who erased. And the third for those who still listened. Then he walked forward into the surf. Not galloping. Not fleeing. Just walking. Until the sea swallowed him whole. No splash. No sound. Gone. Elias didn't move. Not at first. Only when the sky shifted pink did he turn back toward the tree line. Every step felt like carrying the weight of 2 worlds. He didn't cry. Not yet. That would come later. At 4:07, the government arrived to find a stall full of seawater and silence. By 6 o'clock, Elias was stripped of command. By noon, he was under investigation for obstruction, sabotage, and deliberate interference in a federally classified recovery. But he never spoke. No testimony. No plea. Just a single line in his final report. He wasn't ours to keep. Weeks passed. The Sea Lantern was impounded. Crew members reassigned. Files redacted. Witnesses briefed under penalty. The incident became a footnote. A containment breach. A biological misclassification. A systemic misunderstanding. Whatever helped them sleep. One evening, Ling found a backup drive wedged into her gear locker. No tag. Just a name, waves remember. She played it. It contained no footage. Just sonar. Pulses. Rhythmic. Familiar. 3 tones. Repeating. Like hoofbeats beneath water. She backed up the file. Sent it to Anika. And deleted every trace from her console. Then, on the 31st day, the ocean screamed. At 9 degrees south, 119 degrees east, seismic stations recorded an event measuring 7.2 on the Richter scale. The epicenter? Directly beneath the trench. Yet no tsunami formed. No coastline cracked. No pressure waves damaged infrastructure. Instead, the sensors reported something stranger. A pulse. Not tectonic. Not volcanic. Controlled. And embedded within it, encoded radio bands. A message. Buried in noise. Hidden between frequencies. Decoded weeks later by a Norwegian deep ocean lab, it read, "We have intervened. You are not the threat. But you are not alone." Somewhere in the Pacific, under a silent sky, Elias Monroe stood alone at a different shore. He had retreated to a coastal outpost, far from the eyes of officials. A place where the wind still carried salt and truth. He rose before sunrise each morning. Not to forget, but to remember. To listen. The sea moved gently at his feet. The wind curled without sound. And far off, almost invisible, 3 soft flashes of light shimmered just beneath the surface. Then disappeared. He smiled. And for the first time in weeks, he breathed. The ocean remembers. Not in words. Not in time. But in pressure, silence, and pulse. Long after headlines have faded, long after reports are redacted, the deep still hums with what it knows. And it knows what happened at 9 degrees south, 119 degrees east. It remembers the Mustang. And it remembers the man who let him go. Captain Elias Monroe was never reinstated. His name was never cleared. No apology was issued. No formal statement made. And yet, none of that mattered. Because somewhere between the government's silence and the ocean's roar, Elias had found what most men search for their entire lives. A moment of absolute truth. Not the kind found in textbooks or sonar scans. But the kind you feel in your spine when something sacred passes by, and you don't stop it. He didn't need to prove what he saw. He just needed to carry it. So he did. Quietly. For the rest of his days. Once a month, he returned to the same stretch of coastline. Always before dawn. Always alone. He would sit with a cup of black coffee and face the sea. And sometimes, when the wind was just right, he could feel it again. The rhythm. 3 soft pulses deep in the bones of the earth. A heartbeat. Not human. Not animal. Just presence. He never tried to chase it. Never tried to explain it. Because some things don't want to be solved. They want to be witnessed. And then protected. One afternoon, Dr. Anika Ray gave a talk at a small university, far from headlines, politics, or funding boards. She didn't use slides. She didn't quote papers. Instead, she told a story. About a horse no one could explain. About a gate that wasn't meant to be opened, but responded to a soul that remembered how. She ended the talk with a sentence that didn't make it into any academic journal. Nature doesn't need us to understand it. It only needs us to know when to be still. And when to step aside, so that something sacred can pass. Half the room didn't understand. The other half never forgot. The crew of the Sea Lantern scattered. But they carried something invisible with them. Ling now runs a small signal tracking station off the coast of Nova Scotia. Sometimes, when the static clears, she still hears the rhythm. Evan left ocean work altogether. Bought a ranch inland. He doesn't talk about the mission, but every now and then, he wakes at 3 a.m. and walks out to the field. Swears he sees a shape. Watching. Waiting. Then gone. Dr. Chen teaches veterinary medicine now. She keeps a carved stone on her desk, an exact replica of the spiral marking from the Mustang's flank. No one asks about it. But sometimes her students notice her tracing it with her thumb when she thinks no one's watching. Because the truth is, it wasn't just a horse. It wasn't just a mission. It was a reminder that survival doesn't belong to the strongest. It belongs to those who know how to keep sacred things safe. That includes you. Because stories like this, they don't survive by being stored in files or spoken in courtrooms. They survive when someone, anyone, remembers and chooses to listen. Maybe this story made you pause. Maybe it stirred something quiet inside you. Something you didn't expect. If it did, don't rush to explain it away. Hold it. Because the things we don't fully understand are often the ones most worth protecting. And sometimes, the wildest truths aren't meant to be captured. They're meant to be let go. Just like a horse walking into the sea. This is Gallop of Glory, where untold stories still breathe, where forgotten souls still speak, and where the heartbeat of something ancient still echoes just below the surface. If this story moved you, if it made you rethink the boundary between what's real and what's not yet understood, leave your thoughts below. Let us know what part stayed with you. And if you believe, like we do, that some memories are sacred, like this story, share it with someone who still listens. And subscribe so you never miss the next story that was almost lost. Because here, the silence speaks, and the wild is never truly gone.